Long time no see, and welcome to installment 3 of our weekly union update. I'm your host and chapter president, Jana Blunt. Let's get right down to it. This week, we need to talk about some minor updates with the shelter-in-place order, the security of our jobs, a couple quick updates on the employee leaves. We need to address the situation extra help employees are undergoing. We have some great news about our short-term disability renewal. And then, of course, in the last week, what is the union doing? Today is Monday, April 27th. So when it comes to the shelter-in-place order, Dr. Sundari Mays, who is our health officer, straight from Dr. Mays, we don't know when we're going to go back to normal. In regards to our county's shelter-in-place order being loosened, the duration of our county's isolation order is going to match that of the state. Essentially, Governor Newsom is going to be the only one who's able to lift the SIP for all of us. So our isolation order is statewide. Dr. Mays has no jurisdiction when it comes to loosening or overriding our order. The only ability that local jurisdictions have is to tighten restrictions. There are a couple minor exceptions to that. As of Wednesday, certain public parks will be reopened, and other minor things like construction projects and real estate transactions. Big piece on employee COVID-19 testing is coming later on in the video. So when it comes to our job security, in the past week, the county supervisors have avoided revealing how they intend to cut services, how they intend to reduce spending, at admittedly a time where certain public services are more in demand than ever. They will have what they call quote unquote tough choices. Those lie ahead, and the choices will ensure our financial well-being, including the future of hundreds of county jobs. We have bad news and good news. So in the worst case scenario, if our hotel tax, also known as transient occupancy tax or TOT, if that dries up, we might need to cut up to $30 million. That's going to rival the 2008 Great Recession. Back then, the county had to cut about $125 million from the budget over 3 years. They had to cut over 600 jobs. They ordered unpaid furloughs, and they eliminated, downsized, or just outsourced many programs, including substance abuse treatment, youth probation programs, bus routes. No department was spared. Now, neither Christina Rivera, she is our assistant CAO, neither she nor Shirley Zane think that this recession is going to be as deep or as prolonged as the one in 2008. Zane specifically said the projections that she's been looking at looks like about $2 to $8 million cut from the general fund. She said, quote, "That's nothing. We cut about $125 million out of the general fund back then." The supervisors haven't acknowledged outright whether they foresee a similar overhaul this time around, and different projections, again, depending on how you look at it. The current outlook at this point projects anywhere closer to from like $5 million to $15 million hit to the general fund. That's going to change in time, but those are the best projections we have right now, depending on how it's looked at. In either case, that's going to mean cutting a range of 55 to 166 jobs based on our county's payroll figures. That includes total wages, health, and pension costs. But not all of our positions at the county are filled. We've got 4,060 of them, and plenty are vacant. In addition to that, the county is sitting on reserves of $43 million. That leaves our supervisors some cushion before cutting into our workforce. Now, our $323 million general fund, 2% of that fund comes from tourism and 7% comes from sales tax. And frankly, both of those are going to come down. So there's going to be cuts somewhere. In addition to that, the property taxes we take in are a good 80% of our general fund. These largely support criminal justice, administrative departments, fiscal departments. Now, emergency department management states they'll quote unquote only be spending about $50 million on the coronavirus crisis, but only $21.4 million of that will be 21.4 million of that will be ineligible for state or federal refund. It's going to come December when we see whether or not the property tax rolls are lower. Depends on how many homeowners apply for deferred payment. The good thing is, one thing in our favor, there's the promise of federal and state aid for local governments. On the other hand, Santa Rosa's got a hiring freeze going and we don't. In fact, a fourth of the employees at the county were deemed, quote, unessential under the shelter in place and have not regularly reported to work since mid-March while still being paid. Departments like Department of Health, Human Services, they rely more heavily on state and federal funding, and those are gigantic departments, very expensive ones too. They're not depending on property taxes the way others are. And other departments like planning, parks, other services, they depend more on fees. So again, many departments aren't entirely reliant on what we're taking on the property taxes. If property taxes and other revenue sources begin to falter, there will be greater cause for concern, including how secure our safety nets are, but it's too soon to know. When it comes to the priorities of each of our 5 supervisors, in the last week, here's what they said. These are their personal priorities for the budget. All of them said the sheriff. So that's all 5 of them said that. To get more specific, District 1 and 2, Susan Gorin and David Rabbit, they all said the sheriff, roads, and safety net programs. In addition to those 3 things, David Rabbit added infrastructure, law enforcement, public safety, safety net. He's also the only one out of the 5 who said in response to whether or not the county will be cutting jobs, he said, quote, everything is on the table going forward. District 3, Shirley Zane, she said that she'll be sticking to the same priorities as she's done before. Increased mental health and social safety net spending, plus protecting emergency services. So eligibility programs, food stamps, family services, foster care, workforce investment, essentially to prevent our people in the county here, preventing them from further slippage into poverty. District 4, James Gore, in addition to the sheriff's office and law enforcement, courts, fire departments, he said emergency medical work, emergency management division. Mr. Gore also said that he would favor across-the-board cuts as opposed to having a handful of departments bear the brunt of the county's coming shortfall. He's the only one of the 5 who acknowledged the fact that we have a large reserve in our general fund. And then he will be working on budget workshops and deliberations in September. Lastly, 5th District, Linda Hopkins, said that she will prioritize mental health programs, sheriff funding, county roads, and then the West County substation in Guerneville, the sheriff substation, it's gotten targeted in the last few years, and she wants to ensure that that thing maintains presence. All right, so next section. A couple little quick updates and recap on our employee leaves. Now, I know I've been hitting on this in the past few videos, so we won't get crazy with it, but in addition to the regular leaves that we've had before, and in addition to the 80.9 hours of the regular old sick leave that were added to our bank, we have these new leaves that are applicable to this coronavirus disaster. The county provided leave is the disaster paid not worked, the DPNW. This is when when we're not sick, we're willing to work, but our workplace is closed and there's no option for us to telecommute. That does expire on the 5th of May for regular employees. Whether or not this date will get pushed back is anyone's guess. It's been pushed back before. It's essentially following the shelter-in-place order. So if that gets extended, hopefully that this will too, for people who are stuck without any place to go. Unfortunately, for our extra help brethren and sistren, this expired for them as of the 21st. The 21st was their first day no longer receiving this. I'm going to get a little more into the status of extra help employees in a future slide here. Going into what they call the Families First Act leaves, there's 2 kinds. The first one is the emergency paid sick leave. This is the one that provides 80 hours of employer paid sick leave. If you are full-time, it's prorated if you're part-time or extra help. Qualifying reasons would be if you or a loved one is sick or in quarantine, not teleworking. Again, 80 hours total. The Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act, this is the one where if we must stay home because we have a dependent who is stuck home due to their school facility being closed. This one provides up to 12 weeks of leave with up to a 10 weeks of partial pay. The leave is available to employees who have been employed for at least 30 calendar days. So if you're an employee who's been at the county for at least 30 days, you would qualify in that case. It was previously available only in whole day increments, but that's no longer the case. I'll get into that in a second. If you are unable to work or telework because of being stuck home with your child or dependent, in that first 2-week period, it's ideal that you use the EPSL time because those do expire at the end of the year. Our accrued leaves at that point, after that, the 2/3 being covered, the accrued leaves can be used after the EPSL is out. Once more, you do not have to worry about it only being available on a single day, whole day basis. So now the EFMLEA hours, they're available on a partial day intermittent leave basis. You do have to get department approval and authorization. But if you've already completed an application for these benefits, you don't have to redo your application. Your supervisor would just need to send an email to their internal HR staff to authorize it. So again, the big change right now is the fact that this can be used in partial day increments and or intermittently. So extra help employees. As I just mentioned, the disaster paid not work status, that is expired for them. The first day that was no longer being paid was on the 21st of this month. There are 2,303 employees right now represented by SEIU. 54 of them are extra help employees who were relying 100% on wages from disaster paid not worked. These are folks whose they're in positions whose job sites are closed, they can't telework. 79 folks were receiving disaster paid partially. So again, these are positions whose job sites were closed. They can't telework either partially or completely. What that means is that they're no longer being paid. If there's no assignment or any place for them to go, they're extra help, they're just not going to receive a paycheck. One silver lining to this horrible scenario is that the county has told us explicitly on several occasions, even as of a few days ago, there are no plans for layoffs. With that, decisions that are surrounding continued scheduling or usage of existing extra help employees, those are made at the departmental level. So what are we doing with the union? Our demand of the county has been relatively simple. We want to retain our extra help employees, and if and when that does fail, we want them to be reinstated if they have lapsed employment ASAP. Please also keep in mind that if you're an extra help employee who would normally be coming back for the summer season because you are off your break in service, we highly recommend that you make contact with your department head ahead of time. There's not going to be a uniform scenario to expect for everyone, and it's very possible that many department heads don't have any idea how they're going to proceed come summer. So if this applies to you, if you're an extra help employee and you've lost either partial or in your entire pay due to not having anywhere to go, please apply for unemployment benefits immediately. If you haven't already done so, do it online. It's relatively easy. This is a local telephone number for the EDD office in Santa Rosa. Please give them a call. At the end of this video, I'll show you where you can obtain a guide that I put together for applying for unemployment. There's also an email that will be going out, if it hasn't already gone out, to everyone who has extra help to ensure you have that information. We also, if you're interested, we want you to share your experience. What's working as extra help at the county been like for you overall? How have things changed for you during this pandemic? I would be grateful for your perspective. I would love if you would share your story, your priorities, whatever else you would like us to know. Your identification would remain entirely confidential. All information you provide would be voluntary. No identifying info would be shared with anyone publicly. It would just be nice to be able to keep in touch and do what I can to keep you supported in the future. And we'd love to share stories. Let everyone know who hasn't been extra help what it's like. So going into the next section is our short-term disability. So we've got very good and timely news about this. Our chapter board has negotiated with our provider on renewal rates. You may have seen the email that just recently went out about this. We've got our renewals for the next fiscal year. They start in July 1st. As you probably already know, hopefully, we pay for our short-term disability coverage as part of our union dues. This is not something that's done by the county. This is union provided. I'm going to give you a quick recap of the current benefit, let you know what we've got, then I'm going to run you through some quick, frequently asked questions about this benefit. So our current benefit right now is if you apply for benefits and you are out on disability, you will receive 55% of your salary. It's untaxed. So that means that the amount that you're getting is more than the 55%, obviously. In fact, everyone I know who's gone out on short-term disability was pleasantly surprised at how much more they were receiving than what they had expected. The maximum payout you would receive, which is weekly, is $987. And then the rate right now is 0.73% of payroll. And so an example would be per $1,000, it's $7.30. Per $100, it's 73 cents. Very good rate. And then the maximum deduction from your paycheck that they can take out is $27.70. So if 0.73% would result in more than that, too bad. That's the cap. That's the most that will be taken. So check out what we've scored. Now, before I give that to you, we've received a large amount of communication from members in regards to increasing this benefit payout to more closely resemble state disability insurance. If you remember, we're in long-term talks with the county, very exciting, on how to implement SDI for us. We've managed to inch our short-term disability coverage closer to it in the meantime. Check this out. This is the first time we've been able to score a renewal that increases the benefit amount. So instead of 55% of our salary, we'll receive 60% of our salary if we go out on short-term disability. In turn, that increases our maximum weekly benefit payout to $1,300. Best part ever, ain't nothing changing about the rates. It's still 0.73% of the payroll. There's no increase there. The only difference is there is a small handful of employees who are paying the maximum biweekly deduction. These are the people in our bargaining unit who have the largest salaries. This is 3.5% of our membership. If you're already paying that maximum biweekly deduction, and you can see this itemized in your pay stubs by going on to the e-personality or employee self-service, I believe is what it's called, obviously. In either view for your paycheck, whether it's the detailed view or the generic view, you can see it. It's short-term disability, and you can see how much is being taken out. I think I'm making $27 and change, and I think I'm getting 17 something taken out, something along those lines. So you would need to be making significantly more than that in order to get this max deduction taken out. This is 3.5% of our workforce. Only those folks will be receiving any kind of increase in their deduction. The 96.5% of us who are not at the top tier salary-wise will pay no additional cost. So if you are receiving the highest salaries in the top 96.5 percentile or above, you will see an additional $5.43 deduction. It won't begin until May 27th. This, again, minor increase will be offset by our most recent 3% cost of living adjustment and the healthcare savings that we'll all be getting starting in June. So again, at the end of the day, you're not going to be seeing a decrease, which is good. Please keep in mind that our usage of this disability, and I hope I'm wrong, but we're all anticipating the usage of this to increase as coronavirus impacts our workforce. Without increasing the cost for the vast majority of us and the lowest paid of our members, we are increasing our short-term disability payment amounts to our members who rely on this crucial benefit. This is really huge, even if it doesn't seem very exciting. We're in a time right now where more of us might need to use this. And again, I hope I'm wrong, but if I'm right, we'll be getting more, and very few of us will be paying much more. Those of us who will be aren't going to be seeing it with the COLA and the healthcare savings anyway. So thank you, Dublin Insurance. Let's just briefly go through frequently asked questions about this benefit. So who has short-term disability? We're talking about people who are regular employees, full-time or part-time if you're working at least 20 hours per week. You can't be extra help. Again, you have to be regular employee. You've got to have been employed with the county of Sonoma for at least a month, and you must be a paid member of SEIU. If you are not a union member, you're not paying for this and you're not receiving it. So you are stuck without any kind of short-term disability if something happens to you. What is this costing us? 0.73% of our payroll. It's already being paid for as part of our union dues. What it is partial paid time off when you need to recover from a shorter-term injury or illness that happened outside of the workplace. So if for some reason your personal injury or illness happened at work, that would be a workers' comp claim. So again, this is for personal injuries or illnesses which occur out of the workplace, including getting sick. How much money? So like I mentioned before, the good news is as of May 2020, this year, we'll be receiving 60% of our regular pay untaxed. So again, you'll be receiving far more than you expect. And the checks, those are disbursed on a weekly basis. It lasts up to 7 weeks in addition to a waiting period of 1 week. So it's 8 weeks total. Claims are processed extremely fast. It's kind of a boutique little agency that handles these. They're really nice. You're always talking to a live person. I've met these folks in person and they're very, very nice people. So there's a 7-day waiting period, and then after that, you get up to 7 weeks off. How you choose to remain compensated during that first week is up to you. Any kind of accruals that you have will do. Typically, people use sick leave or sick time, the regular sick time, for that first week. And thankfully, each of us got a nice bump to that. After this, if for some reason, God forbid, after the 7 weeks, you still need to stay out, that's okay, because that is when the long-term disability, which is done through the county, that's when that kicks in. And so that's why short-term disability only lasts that long. There's no reason for them to overlap for you to pay for something that you're not going to need. So long-term disability would come through after that. It's provided by the county. And I'm planning on doing a video just about that so I can learn as well, because it's not something most of us are thinking about very much. As a reminder, this is not provided by the county. Our short-term disability was secured thanks to SEIU 10-1. It was won at the bargaining table, and it's provided through SEIU from Dublin Insurance Services. They're local, they're in the East Bay. Kristen McClelland is our billing eligibility person. She is a sweetheart. She answers emails very quickly, and that's her phone number there as well. If this is too small for you to read or you want me to send it to you, please let me know and I'll send it to you again. They can answer any questions you have. Even if you're not going to file for the disability benefits, you just need to understand a little more, or, hey, would this qualify? Please let them know. That's what they're sitting around for. All right, so just to recap, our benefit is increasing from 55 to 60% of our salary, not taxed. Max is going up. The rate is staying the same, and very few of us will be seeing any difference in our paychecks when it comes to the deduction, and those of us who will, it's going to be offset by the COLA and our healthcare savings coming in June. So it's fabulous news. All right, what is the union up to in these last 7 days? We have another meeting coming up with County HR Management. That's going to be this Thursday, last day of the month. the exciting part of it is that they've finally started talking about the fact that we need to phase into what they call the meet and confer status. It's a different level of conversation. It's more akin to bargaining. I think I mentioned that last week. So right now it's the information sharing stage. We're asking questions, we're getting answers, and vice versa, but it's not bargaining. No one has to adhere to anything they say. There's not really any legal ramifications to anything, and there's no official proposals being submitted. We're submitting all sorts of demands to them, and they've received our union demands and requests for information and answered many of them, are working on the others. But until we get into the meet and confer status, we're kind of in limbo. So we're phasing it in. They're the ones who finally mentioned, yeah, okay, time's running out, we need to get into it. So hopefully by Thursday, we'll know when that officially is going to happen. We have 3 additional meetings scheduled out as of today, and I believe they're all on Thursdays and they're weekly. So I'll have weekly updates when it comes to what county HR is telling us, and that's fabulous. In addition to this, we are meeting with other county leaders. As you know, we're meeting with supervisors. In addition to county supervisors and HR management, we plan to meet with Health Officer Dr. Mays. I've communicated with her to schedule just a short meeting to answer some questions that have been coming in from members. The questions that have been coming in, this is my question: what's going to be the nature of when we return to normal? What's it even going to look like? What are you envisioning? And what's been coming in from members is, are we going to be tested as employees? Are we going to get these COVID-19 tests? And if so, what kind of test are we going to get? So I did get some information about this. I watched Mike Thompson's virtual town hall on Friday night. Dr. Mays was there. And so she shared a lot of information about the testings. And so I'll share that right now. So initially, the county had very few testing kits. That's pretty normal when it starts out. Not good, but commonplace. Now, thankfully, our county has swabs, kits, numerous labs are participating, including UCSF. And because of the fact that so many labs are helping out, it's gotten down to a 24-hour turnaround on testing. My stepdad just had to get tested the other day. Thankfully, he was negative. He just has a cold, but he got his results in less than 12 hours. So I think the 24 hours must be some sort of maximum that they're giving out. And like it says on the screen here, she said that we're ramping it up. We're starting widespread testing. We're prioritizing who's getting these tests per the CDC guidelines. When it comes to testing members of the public, she said, quote unquote, very soon. According to Harvard studies, she said, our county, when you size it down from the state and the country, our county should be doing about 700 to 800 tests per day minimum. And she said that we are on our way there. So we've had, as of last weekend, a mass drive-through testing program. It began at the Chenate Public Health Laboratory location. It's a 3-car at a time drive-through, healthcare workers only this week. All healthcare workers in the county in the coming week need to be tested regardless of their symptoms. Again, CDC priority. In addition to those folks, or I should say after the healthcare workers, after healthcare workers who are symptomatic, and then healthcare workers who are not symptomatic, after all those people have been identified and isolated and their contacts have been quarantined too, after that, first responders are the third group. After first responders, it'll be people over 65 who are symptomatic, then people who have underlying medical conditions. After that, infrastructure or public workers who are symptomatic, that would be us, and then anyone in the community who is symptomatic. Then after that is going to come anyone in the community essentially who is asymptomatic. There are different kinds of tests. There are what they call genetic COVID-19 tests versus the blood or serum or antibody tests. The genetic test is what's being used right now. It looks for the virus itself. You can tell if someone's currently infected at the time of testing. But there are also blood tests, aka serum tests or antibody tests. These are very cool. They look for the antibodies to the virus. They test immunity, so they can tell whether or not you've ever been infected with the virus. They're not used to see if someone is currently sick. This test is coming. There are 3 recently FDA-approved serum tests. but Sonoma County is not going to be getting access to any of them for another couple weeks, but she said we will be receiving access to one of them in the next few weeks. Those are going to be extremely necessary for obvious reasons. If you haven't already heard this a million times, data shows up to 1/3 of cases are asymptomatic. So this whole symptomatic versus asymptomatic thing, I mean, you can't say that either one of them is unimportant. Okay, so our next section here, we have other things that we're up to. We are collaborating and communicating and meeting with other community organizations right now. Sonoma County United in Crisis is a big one. Jobs with Justice, the Tenants Union, the North Bay Labor Council, the Sonoma County Coalition of Labor Organizations. I wanted to highlight the Sonoma County United in Crisis. If you go to this website here, you can take a look at the platform and ideally sign your name to it. I certainly did, and all the rest of us did. What this coalition is, it's made up of labor and community organizations, frontline healthcare workers, essential workers, undocumented immigrants, tenants, unhoused community members. What the group is doing is demanding a response from our county supervisors and city councils to ensure everyone's basic needs, housing, security, safety concerns are all met. So communication has been happening. A lot of progress has actually been made. This is the same group that came together after the fires, and so the infrastructure was there in order for us to get this back up off the ground, and it's actually really exciting what they've been accomplishing so far. So please, again, endorse the platform, and once you do, because of the fact that you're going to provide your email address, you'll get updates from them. They're not very common, you're not getting spammed by it, but it's very useful information and it applies to us all. All right. Lastly, on the what we're doing as a union is chatting with you. So I'm going to be continuing these weekly video updates so long as they're useful. They're a little labor intensive, so hopefully they're being forwarded around. Please just send this to everyone you know who might not have received it. The way that we get this information out is primarily word of mouth. So I'll be continuing these so long as they're useful, continuing the regular email blasts. Let me know if you don't feel like you're receiving those. And I'm excited about adding like informational, specific topic related videos. So there's a bunch of different things that I've got in mind on this, but I want to know what you have that comes up in your head when it comes to what you want to learn about, like the long-term disability that I mentioned before, or what does extra help mean, or what's going on with the MOU? You know, can you deal with this section and talk about my rights? Please email me any suggestions you have. No suggestion is stupid. I want to make a video about all of them. Get some information out there. That's my email address, jannablunt@SEIU@gmail.com. As a reminder, I am not employed by SEIU. I am a county employee. That's just an easy way to remember my email address. All right. We're only doing one item on the This Week in Labor History. Don't click out of this video though, because there's some stuff that comes right after this you're going to want to know. So this is Rana Plaza. It's a factory complex in Dhaka, Bangladesh. So it's an 8-story building. The bottom 4 stories, you'd see apartments, shops, offices. I think there's a bank as well. And then the upper 4 stories house garment factories. So thousands of workers were stationed upstairs, creating textiles, clothing for major clothing brands. And their average wage calculates to about 10 of our dollars per week, $10 a week. Unfortunately, the upper 4 floors of this building, which is probably not hard to believe because of the layout of this thing, the upper 4 floors were built without a permit. Architects locally stressed the risks to local government involved in placing factories inside a building, noting that the structure of this particular building was not strong enough to bear the weight and the vibration of the heavy machinery. In April 2013, a local TV channel recorded footage that showed 3 large cracks rapidly developing in the Rana Plaza building. The building was thankfully immediately evacuated. The shops and the bank on the lower floors, they were all closed. Later that day, however, the owner of the building, Sohel Rana, told the media that the building was safe and that his workers needed to return to the building the next day. Factory management had contracts with Benetton and other major US labels. They insisted their workers return to the job the next day. They even threatened to withhold a month's pay from employees who refused to come to work. The next day was April 24th, 2013. The building collapsed during the morning rush hour. More than 1,130 people were killed in the accident. The reason why we say more than is because depending on where you were in the building, your body may not ever be identified. Over 2,500 people were injured. Countless protests, riots, parades, they all took place. I don't have time to go into each one, but trust me when I say that these protests were gigantic and effective. At first, they were made up of the survivors and the family members of the dead, but in time, other garment workers joined in, and finally, workers in all industries protested in the next days, weeks, and months. Each protest honestly deserves its own shout out due to what the protesters were put through and what they achieved from doing so, but I'll spare everyone this time. A week after the collapse, a group of retailers and nonprofits created an accord on factory and building safety in Bangladesh. Happily, there were a significant number of accomplishments under the accord, including large-scale hazard identification and remediation of safety issues. Engineers inspected more than 2,000 factories and identified more than 150,000 safety hazards. This accord included safety training programs, evacuation drills, and provided workers with the ability to submit complaints anonymously, which was huge there for the fear of retaliation. This was the deadliest structural failure accident in modern human history and the deadliest garment factory disaster in history. And while this catastrophe was obviously a wake-up call, the story is not unique to Bangladesh. Cheap human labor is sourced in many countries where local economies are bound to the garment industry. So long as we keep buying from sweatshops, they will not disappear. It's not hard to ensure that you're purchasing your apparel from facilities who obey strict labor standards. Factories should be clean, they should be well lit, they should provide adequate breaks to their employees, they should pay a living wage. Just the way we feel about ourselves should be the way it is everywhere. It's easy to determine whether or not you're purchasing something that was ethically made. Look for fair trade certification labels. Just do a little bit of research before you buy. Now that you've sit through that, a couple quick reminders. If you're nearing your accrual cap for vacation time, which is 280 hours for most of us, if you're a supervisor, you've got 360 to cap, please take some vacation time. We've heard from a couple employees who are being told they can't take vacations because of the fact that we're dealing with everything we're dealing with. That's not okay, especially due to the fact that folks are going to stop accruing after that cap. We're working on it. We're taking care of it. In addition to that, if you haven't already submitted your reimbursement for the health and wellness, $500 or more, depending on what position you have, make sure that that gets in by the beginning of June. Give them at least a month to bounce it back. HR is kind of slammed right now and you don't want to lose the money. Don't forget informational video topics, specific ones. I've got ones coming up about extra help, union benefits, the generic regular employee leaves that we have, where our union dues are going, and then ideally each section of the MOU, some highlights. That's my email address right there. Any ideas that pop up between now and whenever, just send them to me, and I guarantee it's a good idea. If you're thinking of it, there's a lot of other people that are thinking the same thing. And then of course, please keep in touch with your union reps, Michael Beloria and Diego Santelices. Please, if you don't know how to get a hold of them, I know I've been ramming it down your throat, just email me at the same email address above, or call or text at 707-849-3752. That's my cell phone. I can get you the contact information for your union reps. Last screen. So one last reminder, We have a shared Google Drive folder. That QR code, that square right there, you can scan that with your phone and it'll take you right to it. Bookmark the bad boy. You can also enter in this shortened URL. It'll take you to the same place. You've got all sorts of resources and info in here. Contact information when it comes to the union, including me, the rest of the chapter board, and the actual union reps. The newest thing that I dropped in there today is a layoff and unemployment resource packet. It includes how to apply for unemployment, how to obtain employment again with the county, and then if you need it, and you really should use it if you have to, job link at the employment and training department. Excellent resources in that department. It's honestly, I wish I knew about it before I came out the county. It probably wouldn't have taken as long to get hired. So in addition to that, mortgage and rent relief, all sorts of different resources. And of course your MOU is in there. All right, let's stop sharing the screen. Just as a reminder, my cell phone number is 707-849-3752. Email address is jannablunt@gmail.com. jannablunt@gmail.com. It's late. Thanks again for viewing, and please contact me if you ever have any questions. I'll see you next week.